So, hi everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm Al, and I'm one of the community managers for Sanctuary Shattered Sun. And I'm here today with a young chap who kicked off Sanctuary Project. It's Mike, better known to the community as 92. How are you getting on? All right?
Yeah, all right, mate. And yourself?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. So, I've asked you to come here today to tell us about how Sanctuary got started and the key points that really made it. It's an indie game that's doing quite well. So, how did we get here today?
Yeah, right. Well, it's been a bit of a long path, but we've made it. And
Hmm.
thanks for bringing me on because I've just been going through a couple of years of all of our old videos, our old footage, all of our really first posts and stuff to just work out, uh, how we got here. And it's like there's some really cool moments that I'd forgotten about. Like, for example, that the name of Sanctuary at one point was going to be called Heart of Fire. The name Sanctuary came later. So basically, the way Sanctuary started is with the Subcom developer interviews. So I interviewed the Subcom devs. It started with this guy, Brad Reeb, who was the lead designer of Forged Alliance. And then we went through the whole Subcom dev team. And it ended up with this video, which I'm kind of simultaneously proud and embarrassed of because this is a video with Chris. I don't know if you've seen this one, but like in the first couple of minutes, I pitched to Chris how we need to make a new RTS game, and it's like pretty intense. Like I'm a bit cocky, to be honest, and I feel bad about that. But at the end, he's in, right? He's like, "Yeah, let's make one," which is pretty
It
cool.
worked out really well, didn't it? It
Yeah,
worked out really well. He's very much a fan of what you're working on.
yeah. But in this video, he agreed to make an RTS. He's like, "Let's make Supreme Commander 3. Let's do it," and it ended up not working out. But in that video, he was in. And what we were trying to do is get like a whole bunch of momentum. And if we got a huge momentum, then it would like take off. And it was kind of medium. So, um, but it did stir a lot of energy in the kind of subcom modding scene, and there were a lot of us who were like really interested, who had been following the whole interview series. So there was heaps of energy about that, and some of us wanted to put an RTS game together. But the problem is I had a full time job. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to leave it to take on a project like this. So, it was a bit of a decision to make, but it was made for me by COVID because I lost my job and I had essentially zero chance of getting another one. So, COVID really fixed that for me. Thank you, COVID. And it's funny because there's been a few times on this project where circumstances were dictated by, an outside force. So,
Hmm.
we decided to do it and make this RTS. And what I found is the old pitch documents and stuff for the very first pitch. This was like a board, a concept board that showed like the core ideas and the core vision. So this is like, we just want to like modernize similar games, keep
Hmm.
the golden formula of those games, but we're going to add sizzle. We're going to add some key new features. We had like ideas that we would add, and that was in here. There's things like adding T5 volumetric water. Apparently, was a thing, and then there's all these like useful features we could add, like replays that you could start in the middle of them, things like that. So this was the pitch. This was the idea of like a new RTS that's basically like the nostalgia of the past with some next gen ideas attached to it. So that was like um, the whole pitch, really. Um, but I couldn't do it by myself. I'm a software developer. I've been a software developer for 20 years. I've worked on some pretty big projects for some big clients, and I've tinkered with some games and stuff. But I'm not an artist in any way. And at the time, Tatsu was looking around trying to start his RTS project, and he found me, and we kind of joined forces. And on the back of these documents, we kind of like assembled a team. So this is some of the concept art from day one. This is the first Sanctuary concept art, and I literally drew it with crayons. So don't judge me. It's a crayon drawing from my kids' crayon set. And this one's talking about when tanks shoot. like all the trees and stuff nearby could like sway because of the
Hmm.
velocity of the wind, right?
Yeah.
And the shock waves, because and this is a thing I wanted to bring into Sanctuary, is there would just be like dust kicked up, there would be like plants and stuff, and it would all just move when there's explosions. But another one of the cool things that we would add is like those super weapons. When they shoot, just the muzzle flash is enough to like make all the forest fall down.
Yeah.
This is Shatter, the first incarnation of Shatter. So you would have a missile that hits, and not only does it take out a chunk of the map, but it actually puts these like earthquake lines straight down. So that's what it was meant to be, and we had that idea on
And
day
you
one.
and you said you're not an artist.
Yeah, I would, and then I'm not a good artist. BS artist. Um, but we didn't announce Shadow for ages. We had all these secrets. We kept like things back for months. Like I don't know how many months it was, like 8 or something. We just didn't
Hmm.
announce these big ideas because it was meant to be this big reveal where one day we would just hit everybody with our ideas, and it's like pretty cute. This is a volcano, and you can blow up the land and the lava comes out because we got volumetric water and lava, and you could literally bury your base in lava. That's not going in, by the way. And this is T5. So it'd be like a robot that's built lying down, and then you get into him, and then he like can walk off, and he can just walk on other tanks, and he can walk over mountains, and he cracks the ground just by walking on it, and he can just shatter experimentals by walking on them. So this is kind of like the initial pitch, and T5 was meant to be much bigger than the
Hmm.
current incarnation, because the current T5s are they're kind of just like T4s. They're tall, but they're the same footprint. I'm thinking like 3 times fatter. Um, so that was that one, and then this was like some sort of weapon that sort of like could chop buildings in half. It'd be like a flat disc. There was one in Star Wars, in one of the scenes where it like could blow up through an asteroid field. And then this was just the concept in general of destructible buildings. So it'd be like, tall skyscrapers falling down, crushing tanks. But you could blow up the building that way or that way, depending on like the impact direction. Um, that kind of made it into the trailer somewhat, but we haven't seen that one in game yet. I think that would be cool. And incidentally, we didn't come up with all these ideas. This was really told to us by Brad, the Forged Alliance lead designer, which
Hmm.
is the destruction of buildings actually having like an effect on the game. And the volumetric water, that was kind of from Jeff Petco, the lead dev. And he was thinking like tidal waves and stuff like that, which would be really cool. Also not in the game. And this is kind of like some explosive weapon, right? Like a big pink bomb thing that when it goes off, it just like cuts a hole in everything, and then your unit's cut in half and just like falls down in. So we had all these ideas, and they were cool. We had some cool ideas. Over time, not all of them made it. There were like saws that you could drop onto the ground, and the saw would like fly through the ground, and some of them were dumb, man. Um, but armed with this crayon document, right, and the concept board, um, we took it to what would become our team. We had some people that we wanted to bring in to help us build this project. This is the project that we invited them to come and build. So we had Avitus and Bread join us, who were both modders, um, just from other Subcom games. So we asked them to join, and we also had Badump. So it was Badump and I writing the code, and Avitus and Bread were doing the art. And Tatsu was running the community at the time. Like this all changed over time, but that was our roles
Hmm.
at the start. And a month later, after the signing of all these contracts and documents and stuff, creating this RTS game, because it wasn't Sanctuary yet, right? It was actually just an RTS game. We had this, which was the first sort of tech demo of Sanctuary. So this is 24,000 tanks all shooting each other. They explode. They have like, you can see the projectiles shooting out, and you can zoom right out and see all this stuff. See, at the time, we thought like a big issue for us that we had to prove is the CPU performance was going to be a big deal. That's not. And the other problem was all the rendering. So being able to zoom in and out, and there's all these like tricks you have to do to get that to work well. And this, solves those problems. But it turns out those things weren't big problems. There's other things that are much harder to solve than this. But this is what we were thinking. And this is like a month after the contract was signed. We had this. That Sanctuary 1.0 was the first build, I guess. So there's a little bit of history there. And it wasn't called Sanctuary, it was called Project Trebuchet. So Trebuchet was a joke that we had at my work, at my previous job, because we had some French guys in the office, and anytime they asked anything, we would just say Trebuchet. So they'd be like, "Oh, can you get that thing over there?" And be like, "Oh, Trebuchet." Or if they're like, "You want to go for a beer?" We'd be like, Trebuchet, And it was just a running thing for like 2 years. And when we had to come up with a name, I'm like, yeah, let's call it Trebuchet. So that's what it was. So yeah, and that started the golden age of brainstorming. So every night, the 5 of us, we were on the phone, on Discord, talking nonstop about RTS. We're talking about lore. We're talking about factions. We're talking about the game name. What do you even call a commander? Like, what's its name in our universe? We still haven't really answered that one, by the way. And we just went on and on about trying to come up with all of these things. And at some point, Brett came up with the idea of throwing it on a Dyson sphere. So that was a really, really big decision because until then, we wanted to put it on multiple planets so we could have really diverse landscapes. But by putting it on a Dyson sphere, it became a really interesting place to put it because now shatter makes heaps of sense. Now, like, not only do you shatter the map, it's got like fire under there. That's pretty cool. But you can still have the diverse landscapes because the Dyson sphere is so big that you can have like these different biomes and stuff. And because it's in a sci-fi setting, you can have totally fake biomes. So Brad came up with this idea. He did this pitch to me. It took him like 3 hours or something to do it. And I think, I was well and truly sold after like, the second 10 minutes into the Dyson Sphere thing. I'm in, man. But, he kept going. So we got the Dyson Sphere concept pretty early on. And then a lot of the lore was built around that. So that was mainly Avitus. Coming up with the idea of the 3 factions. We all were like talking about it, but he kind of like put it all together. And like I said, then we started thinking of names of the game. So Heart of Fire was a lead contender for a long time because, it's a planet with a fireball inside. And it would also overlap in an interesting way with Hearts of Iron, but it's kind of like a different type of game. A fun fact about Sanctuary is that the suburb I lived in at the time was called the Sanctuary. So I was kind of like just looking for names and stuff. And like, why don't we just call it after the Dyson Sphere, because it's meant to be a sanctuary. So that's how that one came about. We didn't add the Shattered Sun bit until much later. That was because like we were concerned that maybe people would think it's not a game about war and they might miss it. So that's kind of the sort of stuff we were talking about. Then there were like the factions, and we had only 2 factions at that time. And for a while there, we were calling them Box Faction and Curvy Faction. They were the names of the factions. They didn't have names. Yeah, and they stick. The Chosen was going to be called Azrael's Chosen for a while. We shortened that to Chosen, and the Guard were going to be called the Severed because they are the robots that lost their connection to the AI. So they had that kind of Severed name, which I think is still a pretty cool name, but makes them sound like bad guys. We don't want bad guys.
It does.
Yeah. So then, we had our team. We had a vision all of a sudden. It was no longer Project Trebuchet, although that's still what it's called in GitHub. Half the team members wouldn't know why. And then we became Sanctuary. So this was our first logo. This was made by Tatsu. Very nice. And this wallpaper art was made by Brett. I think that was his first concept art for Sanctuary. And that's what our branding looked like for a pretty long time. And it was around this time we started like forming up the company. So besides all the cute stuff and the game stuff, we had to actually make a company. The people working on the product were getting small slices of the game as like ownership and stuff like that. So we had to formalize that. We went to like lawyers to go through all this legal documentation and stuff. I just signed up to this project to be a coder, but all of a sudden I'm doing all the legal to do with like shareholders, contributors, IP law, investment type stuff, accounting, tax, like all this stuff. And it was a lot of work, but
you had to get serious.
Yeah, we had to get serious, and we knew it was going places. And it's really weird because we didn't even have shareholders, but we knew we wanted shareholders. So you have to, when you formulate the company, you have to put in all the rules at that point for what the shareholders are going to agree to. Like you're just thinking like really far in the future. Sorry, what were you saying?
I would say, has that taken some of the edge off your enjoyment of the project? That it had to become a really serious thing.
Well, I guess so. Like, I mean, that comes up sometimes. My wife, she's all like, "But you're working on your dream project, right? You've been talking about this for years." And I'm like, "This is not what my dream was, man. Like doing tax and accounting and stuff like that. There's nothing even close to what I had in mind. I want to blow up tanks, man." So yeah, like, I mean, I guess that's the reality of the world. But it's still a kick-ass job. I run a RTS company. I get to blow up things. Sometimes some aspects of it are tough, but what job isn't?
Good point. There's always good things and bad things, isn't there?
Yeah. So we had Sanctuary, and then we had videos that looked like this. So we didn't have a map yet, but we had tanks, and they would all blow each other up, and thousands of units on the battlefield. It was all about performance. Then it was all about network. This is what we were thinking of. We didn't really care about the pretty stuff. It was all like hardcore code stuff. And at some point, we started running low on money, so we wouldn't be able to like keep working on it. But the plan was always to go to Kickstarter at that point. We had that plan for a long time, but
you've said the magic words now.
The Kickstarter words.
Kickstarter. Yeah, you shouldn't have said that, because that's the one thing that other than how is Sanctuary lit, the main question that comes up. The main question that comes up is, when is the Kickstarter?
Yeah.
And soon, trademark. It's have you got anything further that you can give us on?
It sounds like you've got this covered, Al, and you already know the answer. Well, I reckon Kickstarter will be done by July. I'm pretty sure of that. Okay. So I can say that, but as you'll see through this story, it keeps getting delayed, and that's coming up right now, actually, in the story. So we'd run out of cash. The plan was to go to Kickstarter. And just before that happened, sort of fate intervened again. And I got a call from an ex-boss of mine saying, "There's this like startup going on, and there's this cool job, and if I want, I could take it." I got offered a pretty nice job. And I'd worked out that if I put half the money I earned into Sanctuary, we could hire like 5 people, right? So instead of going to Kickstarter, we decided the best thing was to like hire 5 people. And I went off and I took this job. And that started the most insane year of my life, because like I still had a kid. I had a full-time job. I was working on Sanctuary at nighttime. It was so stressful. Like my job, it was a contract, right? It only, got renewed every month or every 3 months. It's like I never knew when it would end. And the second it ended, Sanctuary would be all messed up. So I was desperately trying to just like kick ass, like absolute ass at work so that I, wouldn't lose my job so that we could keep going. And, I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning all the time. And like the thing is, like, we're all in different time zones as well. Lots of people
Hmm.
are in Europe. I'm in Australia. So yeah, that made it a bit of a hassle. So I went and did that, and that's when Tatsu stepped up, and he became like a bit of a front man for the project. He was doing all the videos, all the like community engagements, that sort of thing. While I went off and took care of money. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what happened. And but with that money, we were able to like hire more people. So we got our 5 people, and we started scaling up. So this was a big deal for Sanctuary. It wasn't just us 5 anymore. Now we were like 10 or something like that. I don't know, not exact. So we tried to like hire the best people we could find. We didn't have lots of money. We had to like, be budget. We found people who like loved the project. Everyone's willing to like slash their rates so they, they could go make much more money at other companies, but they're happy to work for us because it's fun, right? And we got lots of people like that who are working for fun. And the interesting thing that happens when you work for fun is you don't want to do all the boring, shitty jobs. And we have stacks of boring, shitty jobs. And that's one of the hardships that you run into when you like run a company this way. You got to like do things not necessarily your own way, right? So that's just a challenge. Like, it's still worth it, but that's part of the compromise. Um, so we'd find
So
all these different people. Yeah, go.
how did you how did you how did you fix that problem then? Because that seems like quite a challenge for somebody who is trying to get a project running and get that momentum going. And you've got tasks which nobody wants to do, and people are doing it, as you say, mainly for fun. How do you tackle that as a project lead?
Well, I guess you just try and compromise, right? Like, so on one hand, you're just explaining over and over how we need it done, and on the other hand, you're trying to like give them wriggle room, or you can make a mix of jobs, so they can have some fun and some not fun, all that sort of stuff. But like, at the end of the day, like working on an RTS, there is a lot of stuff that isn't that much fun, and some of it.
Hmm.
We've got one guy on the team who's worked on one task for a year, for 12 months straight, with like no deviation, and that must get old, but it's getting paid, gets to work on an RTS, kind of cool. But then like some of the stuff could just like run with it, and you wouldn't need to like talk to them at all. Like you look at Avitus and his models, like we don't tell Avitus what to do. We just say, Avitus, make units, and he says okay, and then just starts modeling up heaps of which is why we got him, because he was already doing
Hmm.
it for a different project and he was amazing at it. So it was just like a good hire. And it's interesting, how do you hire people? Do you hire people on a jobs website? That's a way to do it. But if people come to you on Discord, they're all passionate, right? They all want to join your project and they're good at it, right? And you know, if they're really enthusiastic, maybe that means we can afford them, because Sanctuary doesn't have lots of money. Let's face it, and we can't compete with like AAA companies. We're an indie company.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and spending lots of time on the hiring process is really important, because you just want to find these independent people. You don't want to micro them. I do think that one thing that you want to get right is a way to check in on how things are going. You don't just like set things up and walk away. You should have like a way of reviewing stuff like really frequently, actually. So that's something that I think is really important. We also had stacks of volunteers, stacks of them. People would be coming up to us like every week, can I join the project? Can I join the project? And we tried it heaps, but it's really hard. The learning curve is the same whether you're getting paid or you're a volunteer. It takes our time to
Hmm.
like train somebody. Um, so but then when the going gets not when the going gets tough, but when you're a volunteer putting in like 3 months of serious work, that's a huge amount of your time. And then after that, you just want to like do less, right? But
Yeah.
the cost to the team to train you was still there, and we just couldn't manage all of these people. It was really really tough. So we still do a little bit of volunteer work. Like I mean, we would do a little bit of volunteer work, but we've kind of really toned it down. Probably not with programming because it's so hard, and the learning curve and training time is so high. So we'd scaled up the team, and then we just got on with building the game. So this is like maps, doing the art, doing the programming, getting all the rendering working out, all the performance stuff, network, all these things. They were all technical challenges to address, and there was content to make that we're still making after all this time. And like, yeah, the hardest part, I guess, of the project has always been just like getting it all working with modding and networking. Because if you don't have those things, this project isn't actually that hard to make. But with those things, it's really, really tough. We also had issues with time zones. So we're all in different time zones. And sometimes when we have our daily meeting, it's like 1 a.m. for one guy and 7 a.m. for another guy. And imagine that for like a year. So we always just hired people like we didn't really care where they came from. We just hired whoever we thought was the best within our budget. So time zones were something we had to compromise on, right? And
Yeah.
it would be much better if we're all in the same place. Like it absolutely would. But you know, if we had millions of dollars, we would do that, but we don't. So we'll just put up with the time zones. So that's kind of what went on for a long time. But we had a really big break when we did our Guile launch. So at this time, Sanctuary was looking something like that. And we jumped on Guile, who is a big YouTuber in the subcom world with like 50,000 subs or 60. Sorry, Guile, I don't know. And we showed him what we were up to. So by this point, I think we'd been working on for Sanctuary for about 8 months, something like that. And we just showed him all the stuff. We showed him the concept art. We showed him like our models. We showed him our maps, like all this stuff that we'd been working on. And he was really nice. He was really interested, and he just said, how can we help? What support do you need? And we kind of improvised the answer, which is like, if anyone has any money and wants to help us out, get in touch. And I thought that would have no chance in hell of working, but it did. We had 5 investors reach out to us in response to that video, and we raised a chunk of money so that I didn't have to feed the beast
Yeah.
forever, and we were able to scale up a little bit more. So that was like a huge thing, and there was this really cool moment actually where one of the investors in particular, like the first one actually, he was like saying, he understands startups and he knows it can be pretty hard, and especially like if no one's invested before, like it's just really it's tough to get your first guy. It's hard. Maybe I could be your first guy. And it was just this really cool moment where this guy just like said he'll do it, and he was in, and he gave us his money, man. So then, we had to do all this paperwork for all the investors and also the contributors who had been working on the project. We had these like piles of paperwork, like in my house on the living room, because they would have to like have 5 or 6 documents per person. I need to judge up that photo. That was a really fun moment, just getting everything signed and official. The next big moment, I guess, was when we did the Steam page, and then we had the trailers at the same time. So we dropped with our trailers. We had 2 trailers. We had the cinematic one and the gameplay one. It was there's a funny story about the gameplay trailer because that's like recorded in the engine, and we had all these like camera shots set up, and there were like bugs in it, and you would record the footage, and then you would edit the footage, and then you'd see the bug, and you'd have to fix it and re-record the stuff. But there was this epic like 48-hour period where we were working on it non-stop. Like, you know, I'd do a whole bunch of work on the trailer, hand it over to the boys, go to sleep, and when I came back, all this work had been done on it, right? And but it was time for me to like fix some bugs and get it back to them or something. And we just kept like, because we're in different time zones, someone was just working on it like nonstop for 2 days or something. So that was a cool little moment. We also,
in terms of Steam,
yeah.
In terms of Steam, as you mentioned, you had the Steam launch. Do you think that Sanctuary would have had anywhere near the exposure and visibility if you had opted not to go with Steam?
Yeah, definitely it would have had less visibility. And this was like one of my biggest mistakes on the project, because I actually didn't want to launch the Steam project, the Steam page. What I wanted to do is when we launched the Kickstarter page, we would launch the Steam page at the same time. And then the Steam page, all those users would get directed basically to Kickstarter. Because when we launched the Steam page, we had 40,000 people there in like the first 2 weeks. 40,000. That's such a huge amount. Well, that was the amount of wish lists we got. Like, I mean, there would have been more people, but 40,000. And if you can direct that sort of traffic to your Kickstarter on day one, you're doing great. So I wanted to delay the Steam launch for that. But you know, everybody else wanted to just launch the Steam page, so we just launched it, and we announced Shatter, which was another thing I think that I wanted to delay. We just basically played all our cards, right? And we played them early, and we kind of cannibalized Kickstarter to do it. And I still don't know if that was the right decision or not, but those wish lists have grown since then. We now have like 115,000 wish lists. So we wouldn't have that if we wouldn't have that. So, and so much came from that. You know, we got more credibility, we got more investors, we got more people attracted to the project. We had other, you know, influential people join us because of that. So, you know, I think it was one of my worst decisions, and I got overruled. So, happy days. The other thing we had around the other thing we had around this time was we had lots of like really good concept art. So, and that sort of comes from that is we were attracting these people to our project who were actually like really good artists, and they would hunt us down. The guy who made the Sanctuary cover art, he worked on the Dune movie poster, right? He was the concept artist for Dune, not the game, the blockbuster movie, right? And he came to us saying he wants to work on Sanctuary. And we're like, oh, we can't afford you. And he's like, sure, I'll help you out. So he did us a deal, and we got some like really, really cool art. And, you know, that's because of the Steam launch, right? You know, that's, you know, or, you know, those sorts of things are caused by things like that. You know, you just got to play all your cards, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you have to play your cards, and you're just increasing your profile all the time, and you see kind of like, you just see what you get. And that strategy has just worked out for us, you know. Yeah.
It's that momentum, isn't it? It is. It's getting that. It's keeping that momentum, and I think that's probably the one thing that as a relative newcomer to the Sanctuary ecosphere, it's seeing that the momentum sometimes drops off and then it has to be picked up again. It's quite interesting to see that the ebb and flow of interest, and doing videos like this is a fantastic way of getting people to reacquaint themselves with the project, and I guess it's keeping that going all the way up until the point where, you know, where you get a launch,
which is so hard to do. Like, we know that we could do a much better job of that. You know, community engagement, talking. People say they love our dev blog posts. You know, we haven't done one for ages. Like, you know, the truth is that there's we just don't have the time, right? There's 1,000 things we would love to do that we know we should do, but time is time. So, you know, we're just doing our best. Indie team, indie resources, something's got to give, and you know, I'm just focusing on the game itself rather than the community stuff. But So we'd done the Guile thing and gotten our investors. We launched the Steam page. Our wish list started going up. And a lot of that sort of success was due to like our nice art. We had that nice concept art, and we had like lots of nice models and stuff like that. We had Ozone on the team, and he just like he's a technical artist, Ozone X, and he could do just like heaps of the programming to make it all work. And he just made all the rendering dreams come to life. So he was really important. At some point, Tatsu left the project, so he had been doing all the video work and heaps of like the internal runnings of the company. Um, I guess he just wanted to run things a different way, and he had some other opportunities, so he um, he left, and that's when Bread took over the frontman role, and he took over a lot of the work that Tatsu was doing, both in the kind of like publicity type of thing, but also the running of the company type of stuff. So Bread was doing a lot of that, and look, both they were very very different, and they had very very different styles, but they were both good. Like Tatsu was very engaging, and he was kind of like spoke from the heart, I think, and I think he swayed a lot of minds. Actually, he carried things a lot with the way he would talk, and Bread is kind of like very Bread. Is very very excited and animated and very confident and just really loves his project. So like both of those things were really good to watch. Um, so then all the project building continued, and at some point we had to raise money again. It's all about the money, right? Because
Hmm.
you need to pay all of these people to keep building the game. And for ages there, I was just doing everything I could think of to get more investors. I was talking to venture cap firms. I was talking to friends of friends who were like wealthy people. I was talking. I got in touch with like people who knew people, right? Like, I was wearing my suit, going into like private clubs and like very fancy, exclusive venues and things like that.
Schmoozing people. Yeah.
Doing my pitch. Well, I'd be invited there, right? Like, to show them the investment opportunity and all this sort of stuff. So I was doing that for quite a long time. And that never worked, right? Like all of those things didn't really pan out. We did get investors. We've got like 30, 29 investors or something like that. So we did get them. But I think 10 of my friends and family who, just kind of invested because they want to help me out and they kind of believe in me, but they don't know much about the project. And the rest of them, they're all like people from the community. They're all people like the people watching this video right now. So, I'm not a salesman or a businessman or anything like that. I'm a computer programmer who has been trying to make an RTS game for a few years. And we're doing good and things have been going nice. But, let's not pretend for a second that I'm some like awesome sales pitch guy. I'm not. So the where we did manage to sway investors and like hearts and minds and stuff, there were all the people who already knew our product was cool, right? We didn't have to explain it to them. We didn't have to tell them there's a hole in the market. We didn't have to say, oh yeah, look, our demo is really good, go play it or something. These people, they just like knew for themselves. They knew that the world needs a game like this, and they knew that we were on track somewhat. So the sales pitch to was very different to them. And now you go try and explain it to one of these guys wearing the suits in the exclusive, venue. He's used to buying into an aluminium factory or a cattle ranch
Hmm.
or a new perfume or non-alcoholic wine or something like that. It was a really hard sell. So I was doing that for ages, and at some point we were getting a bit concerned, and we thought maybe it's time to go to a publisher. So we started looking at that, right? So then we started looking at that pretty seriously. I was talking to quite a few publishers, and then we started to go to some events. So we went to GDC and Gamescom, which are both like industry gaming events for like professionals, right? Gamescom, has the public side with the 400,000 people there, but it also has the business side, which is like the biggest gaming industry event in the world. And we went to both of those. So there's some interesting things that happen there. So you go there to like meet everybody in the gaming business, right? Like marketing, sound effects guys, like a team that will test your game or outsource all your art. Or, all those people are there and they're all talking to each other. And the way it works is you find like a list of them and you see their profiles and who's doing what, and you just message them and ask for an appointment. So we spent so many people. We spent like 2 days. It was another time zone thing where one person took it over for the other person, but we messaged anyone remotely connected to investing in games. And I ended up, I think we had 40 meetings booked in 2 days, which is a hell of a lot of meetings, man.
Mm-hmm.
So um, these meetings, they go for like half an hour each, right? So Brad came with me and we had to like split up, and he like takes half of the meetings over there and I do half the meetings here. We just didn't have time to do it in one with one person. So tip for the new people, bring somebody else to help you. Even if it's just to like get food and stuff. Like, I mean, those were some insane days. Um, what else happened? So then the other thing is, you'd have like an iPad or something, and you have your whole pitch is just like a slideshow. So you've got your iPad and you're saying, "Here's our product." Boom, boom, boom. I've done my sales pitch so many times I could do it in my sleep. It's just walking through like the business, the product, the gap in the market, the reception. How many wish lists we have, all that sort of stuff. Support from different awesome people. So you need that. I think one thing that we learnt the hard way is like it's really useful to actually join an association or any group, right, that's doing game stuff, because they know things and they will give you tips, and some of them are really important. Like at Gamescom, you're probably not going to get a chair because you have to like book a meeting room, and a meeting room costs like 20 grand or something like that. So we didn't really know that stuff, man. But if you join a group of people, they will help you. There's things like you get invited to parties, and at those parties you can like showcase your game, and we did that, and we got like Tencent was looking at our game. Heaps of people were looking at our game, and we ended up like getting business partners literally from those types of things. So it is good. Another great tip is there's a thing called Meet to Match, which is basically just a way of finding people, but it's way better. So do that. And something I'm going to try next time probably is you can use Meet to Match to remotely attend events. So rather than flying to the States or to Germany, you can just do it over Zoom. So these are all things I wish someone had told me. Also, one of our devs came with us, and he attended the other part of GDC, which is where they do all the Unity presentations. And he ended up getting like, in the good books with the Unity bosses, and they really like Sanctuary. So that's how we ended up on Unity Connect demoing our product there. And that was another like really cool moment. Overall, though, I'd say these events aren't a great way of finding investors. This is a good way of finding a publisher. So if you want a publisher to publish your game, you can definitely go to these events and find a publisher. There are investors there, but they get like 200 invitations. I've had like people say, "Mike, I'm meeting you because I like your game because I love RTS, but I knocked back like 250 appointments to invite me to a meeting." I'm like, right. So that's the competition you're going up against. And Sanctuary is cool, but is it cooler than 250 products? Like, we haven't had success in that. These events are great for getting business partnerships in different ways, but I wouldn't say it was good for us to get equity investment. We did meet a publisher who made us an offer, which was pretty interesting. And if you remember, we're looking for a publisher, but I'll talk about that soon. The other thing at Gamescom is there's like some really cool stuff. So there's like, they have guys in robot suits at parties and things like that, and free beer and things like that. So, it's pretty cool. Met some really nice people. We went to the public section of Gamescom with the 400,000 people, which is manic, right? Like that's so many people. There's
Hmm.
lots of cities don't have four. I think Francisco has, is it 400 or 800,000? I can't remember. It's so freaking many people, and they have all different sections set up for all the different games. And what I couldn't believe, man, is Farming Simulator had 5 different sections. Like every time we turn around was another farm simulator exhibit. Everyone, like Star Wars, had one one place, right? Everyone had one place. Farming Simulator had 5 places spread out all over the place. So they're doing good, I guess.
Hmm.
We also went to PAX. You know, PAX is the other type of gaming convention where it's for the public. So, we were exhibiting there. So now we weren't like attending. We were like showing off Sanctuary. So we did that in Australia, and we did that in the States, and we had lots of cool experiences there too.
That must be like a very real moment when you are exhibiting your game. It's this is now a real thing that people can play, and it's tangible. That must be quite a moment.
Yeah, it was pretty full on, man, because it was like the first time the real world got to see Sanctuary. Everything else was like
Hmm.
online or something, but this was a real person in front of me going, "Oh, cool, this is awesome." And you'd see like the excitement in
Hmm.
their eyes. Or they'd be like, "I love your game so much, it's so cool." And be like, "Oh, do you like the shatter?" And they're like, "What's the shatter?" And you'd hit the key and the whole map would explode and cave in and all that. And they're just like, "Wow," you know? And there were so many moments like that that just kept happening over and over. And we just had all the good feedback in the world. We had people telling us just that it was the world needs more RTS games. That's what people tell us. And interestingly, we
Hmm.
found out that lots of StarCraft players really liked our product, which we didn't think they would. Um, it was really interesting because yeah, all the things they like about it are just normal subcom things. They just don't know it exists. But yeah, that was a bit of an interesting thing for us. Um,
Hmm.
there were other cool moments. We had someone like crying when they saw our game because she just loved Subcom so much, and she thought it was like another Subcom, right? Because she saw it from across the hallway and she saw the strategic icons and stuff. And yeah, we call her super fan. We had someone fly from the other side of the state, so from Alaska all the way to Boston, which is like the whole length of the states, just to visit us. Um, yeah, it is funny. Yeah, so before you exhibit, right, you have to set up. So the day before you land and you have to build your section. It's just like a piece of carpet and you have to like put up banners, furniture, you have to rent furniture, you have to rent screens, you have to pay for like electricity to like be there because there's no electricity there. You have to order electricity to be installed at that part of the venue. So there's heaps of stuff that goes into that and heaps of planning, like weeks and weeks of planning, and you're printing all sorts of stuff and you're making sure the trailer will be on the TV and you're getting speakers and cables and adapters and laptops to run the game. And you got to think about giving the people something. So like when they come, they play and you give them something to remember you. So we had all these like postcards and flyers and stuff that kind of like really quickly explain our game, and a way for people who are interested to like find out more. So we had like barcodes everywhere. You could just scan a barcode from like 5 meters away, just because sometimes there was a huge crowd around the stall, so you couldn't get closer. So
Hmm.
man, I'm just mentioning all these things because this is what I wish people had told me um, when I started, and I've gone blurry.
And you're back.
Well, kind of back. Um, yeah. 1 second. Hacking into the matrix. Okay. All right. I think we're good. So,
Yeah.
the other thing is when you attend any of these events like PAX, it's really good to check if there's any of the business events at the same time because there always is. So whenever you go there to the big like consumer events, like the week before or something, they have a business one. That's really good to know because that's where you're going to find your publishers and stuff like that. So you probably actually want to attend both. But we didn't know that. So yeah, so we were looking to raise the money. We were trying to get a publisher. That's why we went to these events, and we were also trying to get investors. And kind of like the publisher thing, we were talking to lots of publishers. We had lots of good feedback from them and stuff like that. Oh, I missed a step. We also went to San Fran and Seattle. So while we were over there doing that stuff, San Fran's pretty cool. They have like robot cars that drive around with like literally no humans. And in Seattle, they have robot shops where you just like go and take things and they just bill you. It's pretty cool. We met Chris, so we took him out to dinner. He gave us like GPG shirts and unopened Subcom or Supercom boxes. So that was really, really cool. Lots of nice chats with him. We told him about some of our publishing offers and stuff, and he's like, man, if he had that deal, things would be so much better for him. Like, he just got terrible deals, basically. The publishing world has changed. It's still tricky.
Mm-hmm.
We met Brad Reeb, lead designer of Forged Alliance. Nice guy. Had a good chat with him. I don't think Brad gets enough credit. Like, everyone talks about Chris all the time, and Chris is amazing, but I think Brad is amazing also because he perfected the Subcom formula from my point of view. Also, like from the interviews with the other guys, they all contributed to Subcom as well. It wasn't just all like one guy. Like Jeff was saying that he came up with the idea of templates or something like that. Some of the automation, all that type of thing. And yeah. So we're nearly at the end, but game development's been going on for a long time. Needs some more money. Looking for publishers, and eventually we got an agent, which is like a publishing agent. And what they do is they find you a publishing deal, and I strongly recommend actually doing that for like quite a few reasons. But one, they know everybody in the industry already, and I've tried to like go and meet all those people and find them and stuff. They just already know who to call. They just pick up the phone or write an email or something. You'd be just like going through LinkedIn trying to find the right person.
Mm-hmm.
They already know what's a good deal and a bad deal, what's a normal deal. I don't know any of that stuff. There's clauses in these contracts that sound crazy, like insane. Like no one would sign that, but it's just normal, and they know that. So it's really good to have that, and it's good to have a buffer between you and the publisher because you don't want to botch the deal, right? But you're like, I don't know about this, man. I'm not sure. It's good to have an agent to talk to because they you can just test things on them, right? You just pick up the phone and say, I'm not signing that. That clause there's got to go. No freaking way. And like, they tell you, look, mate, sorry, but you have to do it. There's not going to be a choice. No publisher would ever do it without that clause. So, you get to be different with your agent. You just get to kind of like try stuff on. You would never do that with an actual publisher if you really cared about the deal. So, we went through that process for ages, and we had a deal. We had a good offer from a publisher for quite a bit of money, and they were ready to sign. But something happened. The only reason why we were going to sign it is something was going to happen that was going to make some of the clauses okay, and that thing didn't happen right at the last minute. So we really didn't want to sign this contract. We were like concerned about it. Just some of the terms and conditions we weren't sure about, right? It doesn't mean they were necessarily bad or evil or anything like that. They're not, but we just weren't sure. And at the same time, we finally found some more investors who wanted to do like equity cash investor. And this is like another one of those times where like fate took a hand, and right at the
Mm-hmm.
last minute, I mean like 2 days before we were going to sign something like that, we had two guys jump in and extend us again. So you see what keeps happening is we basically always have a date where we need to go to Kickstarter on this date, right? We have to because otherwise we run out of money. But we just keep getting more money. That's the reality. So why would we go to Kickstarter yet? The longer we wait for Kickstarter, the better it's going to be. The more money we're going to raise. The demo will be better. The content will be better. The trailer will be better. The video will be better. Everything will be better. Like, I mean, people play our demo now and they say it's pretty good. Like, it's probably already good enough, but it'll be even better. So I can do the Kickstarter now, or I can do the Kickstarter a year ago, or a Kickstarter in a year. When is the right time? And the answer is pretty much as late as possible. And that keeps sliding. So that's what keeps happening. Anyway, so that's basically where we are at the moment. And, you know, I keep talking about investment, but that's, you know, the reality of running a business like this is you need to keep it going, right? So, you know, we have sometimes occasionally asked on Discord if anyone's interested in joining us. And, you know, it works. Like, the truth is people are interested. And every time I ask, we get another couple of people. And now there's 29. So that's like 19 people from the community have invested in Sanctuary, which is quite a lot. And thanks, by the way. You're doing God's work.
So let me just ask you something about the Kickstarter, because I think that people see the delays in the Kickstarter, because I know that we talked probably about this time last year, and it was the Kickstarter will be in the next 6 months, and it keeps getting pushed back. And I think there's a concern in the community, which I'd like you to stamp on and say isn't a concern. There's a concern that when the Kickstarter is delayed, it means that the game is delayed. But I think what you're saying is the Kickstarter delay isn't a delay in the game. It's the game is still going ahead and the development isn't being delayed. It's just because you have something to fill the void that Kickstarter would cover.
We're not launching Kickstarter because we don't need it. Right? That's reality. And the day we need it, we're going to launch it. Well, like, you know, a few months before. That's the truth. We've just been delaying because, like, I mean, we could have launched the Kickstarter 2 years ago. We totally could have done it and would have done it, but we just had better options. So that's the outright truth. You know, the reason why it would be great to do a Kickstarter soon is because we would know how much money we have to work with, because we don't know, are we going to get 200 grand? We're going to get, you know, 800 grand? What's the number, man? And that would be really good to know, because it changes the way you spend money. And that's been the problem, this whole project, right? Is we never knew how much money we had, because we started with this and then we got a bit and it went down, got a bit and it went down, got a bit and it went down. It's really hard to plan a project like that. If you just knew how much money you had at the start, you'd be like, cool, well, we're doing this, we're going to hire that, we're going to do this. We were never in a position to do that ever. So this is a great reason to do a Kickstarter early, but we're not. So there.
Okay, so hopefully that answers a lot of questions that people have, because, as I say, there is that inference that the Kickstarter being delayed is because the game's going to be delayed and so on and so forth. But that's not the case at all. And I think it's important that people understand that.
Not even a bit, right? Like, I mean, the best you could say is if we did Kickstarter today, then we could accelerate development. So we could like hire some new people and go faster. So you could say that if you want. But that's the worst that you could say.
Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah. But that's basically it. So that's the how Sanctuary started, you know, how we got here. That's the Steam page. I forgot to like change the slides.
You get too passionate. You get too invested in what you're talking about. So
here's the Gamescom robot. There was a man in this suit walking around, shake his hand, and he's like had mech noises and stuff. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, you know, it's been a long path, but you can see from the early days and like the really early videos, you know, how far we've come. Like, Sanctuary's come a long way, and you know, it's going to be great.
Oh, it's huge. It really is. Now, we're all hoping, and we all have a lot of confidence and faith in Sanctuary being successful. As you say, there's a gap in the market. People have been screaming for a replacement for Supreme Commander for many, many years. Is the Sanctuary project, do you think the success of that could be replicated with other things that Enheartened Media might work on?
Right. So this is an interesting question. we're an indie team that's set up on the internet that's been working on something for years and taking it, on the way to market with every sign that it's going to look to be like a commercial success, right? And could you do that, or could you do it with another game? Because really, so the ingredients were that um, there's a void in the market. There's a game like Subcom that has a market, right? And somebody else could make a game in that space. Okay. Um, so we had Chris and Brad giving us support. So they vocally sort of lent their word to ours. So you probably wouldn't have that, but you could, like, let's say, you pick some other game from the past that you really loved and there isn't a modern competitor to that, so you could just like make a game in that space, right? You could find some modders who are already doing really great work like that, and you could invite them, you could give them a pitch, bring them all together and say, hey, let's make this game together. And all you need is a legacy game with a market gap. You probably wouldn't have Chris and Brad support. Then the next step would be to go to like someone like Guile. You need an influencer who loves that stuff, and there should be one, right? Because there's a market gap. There's a guy talking about this type of game. You just show him what you got, get as far as you can, take it to him, and then you say, here's what we're doing, and he's got the audience. You don't need the audience. He's got the audience. The audience already exists because there's a market gap.
Yeah.
And then off the back, you could try and get some investors off the back of that. I don't know if that would work. Like, that's luck, right? But what you should be able to do is get a publisher after that. So you should be able to go to a publishing agent and show them your numbers, your audience, your work, the fact that people believe in you already, everything that you got. And what the agent does is he just takes all that and he turns it into the language the publisher will agree with. And you don't have to worry too much actually about coming up with all the right numbers and stats and stuff. They'll do that for you. Like they'll charge a commission, but don't worry about it. Just do it, and you can get your game funded that way. So I think it is possible. I think we've been really lucky. We had a whole bunch of lucky breaks that went our way. So I don't know, but I think it would be worth a try. And look, I would try it again, 100%.
And I suppose if you have a very successful launch with Sanctuary and you've got that under your belt, then people will be more interested in anything else which comes out of the company because they can see there's already that success there. You're not an unknown quantity anymore.
Well, sure, but in my case, if Sanctuary goes well, then I won't need anyone's help to launch the second title because the funding from Sanctuary, the sales will just pay for subsequent titles. So, we'll be in a position to launch multiple games.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. If you could go back to the start of this project and meet with yourself right at the start when Sanctuary began, what advice would you have?
Right. Well, I already talked about the time zone thing. So one decision we made was to allow split time zones. That is hard, right? Sometimes it's good because people fix your bugs while you're asleep or something like that, but sometimes it's really tough. So we did that out of necessity. We didn't really have an alternative, but if there was a way, we would try that. But I think the biggest thing that I would change is just to have one boss per topic, right? So anytime that you have multiple people who get to decide on a matter, you open up this problem area where you could just have like a difference of opinion. I'm not saying like people are going to be yelling at each other or something, but it just might take a day to make a decision or 6 weeks. So just having like owners of responsibility where you do that, and then you can really just like work out what's going on by having someone decisive, and we didn't do that because when we started, there were 5 of us, and sure, like, as one of the 2 bosses and stuff like that. But what we didn't do for a very long time is set really black and white stuff of like, here is the boss of that. It was kind of almost like a democracy, right? And democracies sound great on paper, but if you really want to just get shit done, you want to have an autocracy. So Yeah.
Okay, so if you could go back, you'd okay. So if you could go back, you'd say be an autocrat.
Well, it doesn't have to be me, right? It could,
No,
but it
no,
could
I know.
just,
Yeah.
it could literally be somebody else, right? But
Uh-huh.
it's good
Mhm.
and very efficient to have like one guy. And you could also chop it up by department, right? So like there's art
Mhm.
bosses here and law bosses here and, things like that. But designing by committee is like the slowest way to do anything ever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that wraps things up, doesn't it?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Well, so thanks for coming and speaking to me. It's been quite a whirlwind journey, and I'm really pleased that you've shared it with us. And I'm sure people will love watching this. Um, for those who are watching, just to let you know that we are planning on doing a Q&A session with 9.2 at some point this month. So we want to hear from you. What would you like to ask Mike? So send your questions in. There'll be a Google form linked in the description of this video. Head onto there, drop your question in, and we'll pick the best ones or the ones which come up time and time again. And I'll sit Mike down for a grilling at some point in the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much for watching. Mike, thanks for joining us. I'll let you get back to work or get to bed. Time zones, man.
Time zones, 11 p.m. All right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. It was great to relive some of the memories. I'd forgotten like lots of that really early stuff. So it was pretty fun for me actually to go through all that.
Yeah, me too.
See you in a month.